Let's check back in with our NBC News political director, Chuck Todd, who's looking at the breakdown tonight by county and the importance of Florida in the general election. What do you got, Chuck?
Well, I want to do two things here. One is the county map is fascinating for a couple of reasons. Number one, just look at it right now. The orange is Gingrich, the green is Romney, and it tells you why. We told you to look for this throughout the night. It tells you why Newt Gingrich wants to keep going. Simply look at Northern Florida. Northern Florida, a Gingrich stronghold. Look, these margins weren't huge for him in a lot of these counties that he won, but he won them, and this is what gives him the hope that if he gets to March and Super Tuesday, when there are more Northern Florida-like states, places like Alabama, Mississippi, even Oklahoma, Tennessee, this is what gives him hope that if he actually runs a better campaign than he did this time, he clearly has a base to build on. But the other fascinating part about Romney's margin, because Romney's going to prove to have gotten more vote than any Republican presidential primary candidate in Florida's history, and he did it basically in 5 counties, Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach down here, and Pinellas and Hillsborough. So 2.5 media markets. West Palm sort of not a full-fledged media market, doesn't have full of, but it's all part of the South Florida media market. Half of his vote margin came out of here. He won Dade County by some 50 points, and it was just an unbelievable margin he got out of the South there and Tampa that made up for, because you would think when you get close to 50% that you would almost win every media market in the state. No, this was a very bottom-heavy victory, if you will, for Mitt Romney. Now, a couple other things I want to point out going to the general, because I don't think we learned anything tonight about the general, but there's a really fun fact that I got from a Florida Democratic strategist, Steve Shale, who ran actually Obama's Florida effort in 2008. To prove why Florida is America's swing state, this is the total vote, presidential vote, for the last 5 presidential elections. The margin is 56,000 votes. That's 0.17%. 0.17. Less than 0.2% have separated the two major parties in the state of Florida, the last 5 presidential elections. Only Colorado actually has a closer total vote of the last 5 presidentials, but it's just unbelievable. Largest Democratic margin was Clinton in '96. Largest Republican margin was Bush in 2004. But there's a reason why Florida is America's swing state. You just see it in the raw total. You see it in the fact that it's even more of a microcosm of the electorate, even inside a Republican primary. I mean, this is the least white Republican primary, for instance, that we'll probably see until we get perhaps to Hawaii.
Chuck, in terms of what you just said about the spread of the vote in the state, I am really struck by how many counties Newt Gingrich won, given the big margin by which Mitt Romney won the overall state. Just to summarize those findings again, what essentially you're saying is that Mitt Romney did not find a way to broadly appeal geographically across the state. He essentially used organizational strength to maximize the turnout of his voters in the parts of the state where he was otherwise going to do well. He had huge organizational advantage, and so that did him well for South Florida, where he was going to win anyway. But he really lost the northern part of the state badly, didn't he?
Well, it is the core. You know, when you looked and we saw our NBC Wall Street Journal poll, remember last week we were talking about why is Gingrich ahead nationally at the time, and he had consolidated the base of the party. He's sitting at, which is Southerners, the folks that call themselves very conservative and strong supporters of the Tea Party. That's somewhere between 30 and 35% of the Republican electorate in general, and it's a strong base. That is North Florida. North Florida is, you know, you always joke, you know, the farther north you go in Florida, the more south you go as far as you go culturally, and was Newt's strength. So what this map shows is that what you just said, which is Romney still has an issue with the core base conservative. If you believe the party, which is still sort of based in the South, it is a culturally conservative Southern party, is the heart of the party. It's not the majority of the party, but it is sort of the largest plurality of the part of the party, if you will. It is still the heart, and that is where Gingrich has a foundation to build on. Now, if he ever could run a campaign to build from there, you see where he could go. You'd rather start where Newt's starting, if you were starting from scratch, than where Romney's starting. It's harder normally in a Republican primary or any primary to have to sort of win over the base. It's easier to start from the base and win over the moderates and win over the casual members of your party. What Romney is actually doing is much harder than what Newt should be doing, but Romney's simply tactically running a better campaign.
Chuck, that's fascinating. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.